Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for joining today. So, it's the appearance day of Srivas Pandit, one of the Panchatattva. So, we have a look at his life and times. This is a mantra which is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, first Adi Lila, first chapter, 14th verse.
Panchatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. I pay obeisance to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, who has appeared in 5 aspects: as a devotee, as the expansion of a devotee, as the avatar of a devotee, as a pure devotee, and as the devotional energy.
So does anybody remember these 5? Who came as a devotee? Yes, but according to this particular verse, he is this particular verse actually is Chaitanya, and then expansion of a devotee is Nityananda, avatar of a devotee is Advaita, pure devotee is Gadadhar, and devotional energy is Srivas Pandit, as far as I know. Yeah, there it is. Oh, no, it's the other way around. Energy of the devotees, Gadadhar, and pure devotee, Srivas Pandit. So the devotee, Chaitanya, expansion of the devotee, Nityananda, avatar of the devotee is Advaita, energy of the devotee, Gadadhar, and pure devotee is Srivas. So if you just go back.
The things here.
Yeah, that's right. Just to correspond it back to the verse. So we go back to that verse. Devotee, Chaitanya. Expansion of devotee, Nityananda. Avatar, Advaita. Pure devotee, Srivas. And devotional energy is Gadadhar. Just like energy of the Lord is Radharani. Okay. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, Srivas Pandit are essentially non-different from one another. Nevertheless, to relish different tastes of divine relationships, that one truth has manifested as Bhakta Rupa, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhakta Swarup, expansion, Nityananda, Bhakta Avatar, avatar of a devotee, Dvaitacharya, Bhakta Shakti, so that's energy, Gadadhar, Bhakta Kya, pure devotee, Srivas Pandit. And here we go, the Panchatattva. These are beautiful deities in Mayapur. Lord Nityananda, Chaitanya Nityananda, Advaita, Gadadhar, and at the end, Srivas Pandit. And the corresponding manifestation in Golok, Krishna, Balaram, Mahavishnu, Radharani, and Narad Muni. So it's described that Srivas Pandit is an expansion or incarnation of Narad Muni, the pure devotee. And we understand that these 3 here are Vishnu Tattva. So they are non-different from Krishna himself. Srivasangam in Sylhet in Bangladesh. We've never been there, but this is his appearance place. Gadadhar Pandit, his father, was a Vedic Brahmin with 5 sons. Born in 1456, Srivas Pandit was the second of the 5. So, 5 children, he was number 2. The family eventually moved to Navadvip from Srihat, Silia, Bangladesh. The eldest son was named Sri Nalina Pandit had a daughter named Narayani Devi, who was the mother of the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur. So Narayani Devi had some very nice interaction with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. She was quite young. Srivas, Pandit, and the other three brothers, Sri Ram, Sripati, and Srinidhi, were all participants in Mahaprabhu's Leela. Narad Muni in Krishna Leela has become Srivas Pandit in Gaur Leela. Narad Muni's friend, Parvata Muni, appeared as Srivas' Pandit's younger brother, Sri Ram Pandit. So this is from the Gaura Ganodesha Dipika. Advaita Charya and Srivas had many things in common. They were both much older than Nimai. Advaita appeared 60 years before Nimai, and Srivas appeared 30 years before Nimai. So quite a long time. So what date did we have? 1456. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in 1486. They were close friends, Narayan and Narad. Because Narad Muni is always chanting Narayan, and Advaita is Mahavishnu. So, and they perform bhakti together. They were both very concerned for the fallen jivas, misusing the scriptures in this world. And they wanted Krishna to appear to save them. Thus, they both prayed fervently for the Lord to appear. As Narad Muni, he went to Kams and advised Kams that Krishna can appear before the 8th child, thus speeding Krishna's advent. Otherwise, Kams was going to let everybody go. But Narad Muni made him rethink that strategy. Srivas Pandit was very close friends with Jagannath Mishra, father of Nimai, and also his Dharampatni, Malini, was a constant friend of Sachi Devi. She served Sachi as a nurse during childbirth. Nimai loved Malini and Srivas as a second mother and father, and Jagannath Mishra would ask Srivas to correct Nimai. So Nimai was very naughty. He would skip school, tease the Brahmins on the banks of the Ganga, tease the girls. So the complaints would come again and again to Jagannath Mishra. But because he was close to Srivas, he would ask Srivas to correct Nimai. Because the father didn't want to correct Nimai. He wanted that relationship to remain intact. So Nimai would pay obeisances to devotees such as Srivas Pandit whenever he saw them, and they in turn would bless him, saying, "May you have devotion to Krishna." As Nimai grew, he would engage in debates on logic and grammar and defeat everyone. But he was also very argumentative, and the scholars and devotees would avoid him. When they saw Nimai, they'd cross the road to avoid Nimai's arguments, because Nimai would defeat them in the arguments. So one day, Srivas Pandit was out walking when he encountered Nimai on the street, and he said, "People study in order to become devotees of Krishna. What is the use of all their studies if they don't become devotees?" So he advised Nimai, don't waste your time by just studying. Start worshipping Krishna as soon as possible. Because Nimai had a reputation of being a scholar and a scholar of logic. So he could defeat anybody and everybody. But Nimai would answer, "You are a devotee. By your mercy, I will surely have devotion for Krishna one day." So it's a very nice lesson from this. We have an opportunity to devote ourselves to Krishna. So we know the way through the scriptures. We go the way through practice, and we can show the way through sharing. This is quite nice. Even though they could not help but be attracted to Nimai, the devotees were unable to recognize him as their own worshipable Lord due to the influence of Yogamaya. So he covered himself. In the beginning stage, he was like an intellectual scholar. He opened his own school, Nimai, when he was young. And he would engage in effectively non-devotional matters, arguments and logic. When Nimai returned from Gaya, so his mood changed completely. He began to display all the symptoms of one who is intoxicated with love of God. Sachimata became terrified because Jagannath Mishra had left this world at that time. And that's why Nimai went to Gaya. But Sachimata was terrified, thinking that her son had gone mad, as others would tell her the same. The ghost has taken over your son, because he was constantly in ecstasy of Godhead. So Srivas Pandit came to see Mahaprabhu because Gauranga, Mahaprabhu had great respect for Srivas. He asked, everyone thinks I have gone crazy. What do you think has happened to me? Srivas Pandit's answer, your madness is good madness. I want the same for myself. I see the signs of ecstatic love in your body. Lord Krishna is very merciful to you. So lesson here, it's important to desire to obtain Krishna, as Srivas Pandit was. A relieved Mahaprabhu embraced Srivas Pandit and said, if you too had said that I was going mad, I would have drowned myself in the Ganga. So this is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. When Mahaprabhu instituted the loud chanting of the holy names in the house of Srivas Pandit, the envious neighbors and Brahmins began to complain and that they were losing sleep because of the noise. They even started false rumors that the king would soon come to punish the devotees. Srivas Pandit believed these stories and was filled with anxieties. He began to worship his Nashinga Shila for protection. So Shiva's Angam is a very famous place in Mayapur, where the Lord would gather with his confidential associates and sing the holy
Prabhuji,
name. Yes.
When we go to Mayapur,
We're going there.
Yeah, oh, okay. All right.
Absolutely. One of our favorite places. And we can sit there and sing. Very, it's a very potent place, actually. Still a very potent place.
Okay. Looking forward then.
Yeah, that's right. This is a really nice place. Very close to the Chaitanya's birthplace. Very close. So we'll see both. Understanding that Srivas Pandit was afraid, the Lord, who had taken away the distress of his devotees, went to Srivas's home as Nashinga with 8 hands. He kicked open the door and said, behold, he who you are worshipping is standing before you. This is to Srivas Pandit. I will save the righteous and destroy the wicked. You should worry no longer. So saying, he sat down in a heroic posture, Virasana, and he revealed the divine form of Lord Nrsimha, holding the conch, discus, club, and lotus. So this was a reciprocation, immediate reciprocation for Srivas by the Lord. When Srivas saw this extraordinary manifestation of the Lord, he was overcome with feelings of love. He began to recite prayers, understanding that Lord Chaitanya is the Lord himself. So up to now, it hadn't dawned on him that this Gauranga, Nimai is actually Supreme Lord, due to Maya, and not ordinary Maya, of course, Krishna's own Maya. But now Chaitanya revealed himself. Mahaprabhu, pleased with Srivas Pandit, told him to call his wife and family members to have darshan of his divine form. At this time, he gave prasad to little Narayani, who was the daughter of the eldest son of Shiva, eldest brother of Srivas. So, what's the lesson from there? Desperate prayers to the Lord will allow the Lord to kick open our doors of false ego and pride and enter our hearts. That's really nice. I think at one time Srivas Pandit asked the Lord to calm down and come in, otherwise you're going to disturb all the neighbors. When Nityananda Prabhu came to Navadvip, Mahaprabhu wanted to perform the Vyas Puja ceremony at Srivas Pandit's house. After completing the puja, Srivas placed a flower garland in Nityananda Prabhu's hand to offer it to Vyasdev, because they were going to do Vyasdev's puja, Vyas Purnima. Nityananda Prabhu, however, put the garland around Mahaprabhu's neck, who then showed his six-armed form, Sadbhuj. This is very rare, where he shows his form as Krishna, two-handed with a flute. Then he shows himself as Ram with a bow and arrow. And then you've got the fifth and sixth arms here. This is the pot, and this is Sannyas rod, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sadbhuj. There's a few temples in Bharat. We have this as their main worshipable deity. When Mahaprabhu saw Srivas Pandit's devotion to Nityananda Prabhu, he blessed him, saying there would never be any poverty in his house, and that even dogs and cats in his house will have a steady devotion to the Lord. When Mahaprabhu desired to bring his Sankirtan pastimes, he held them in the house of Srivas Pandit with only his intimate associates present. When the Kirtan began on an Ekadashi, Mahaprabhu revealed many transformations of ecstatic love as soon as the chanting began. The scripture injunction is that one should engage in Kirtan on Ekadashi, also known as Hari Varsara, Day of Lord Hari. On that night, Gauranga, the life of the world, began to dance. This auspicious beginning for the Sankirtan movement took place in the pious Srivas Pandit's courtyard. This is from Chaitanya Bhagavat. This is Srivas Angam. These are the deities that are there, Panchatattva. They also have, Panchatattva. They also have Radha Krishna there. Just as the long night of the Ras Leela seemed to the gopis to last only a few moments, the nights of Kirtan as Srivas Pandit seemed brief to Mahaprabhu and his associates. At the end of one such night, Mahaprabhu placed all the Shalagram Shilas on his lap and sat down on the altar, where he revealed his divine nature in a wonderful form. And he accepted all the food offerings given to him by the devotees. So this was a night where he showed his different aspects of his forms. He showed Varaha, he showed all the different forms. Mahavishnu he showed to Advaitacharya. According to the devotees' desire, he would show them his form. On another occasion, this is another occasion as well. Mahaprabhu exhibited Mahaprakash Leela, the pastimes of the great Epiphany at Shivasangam. He withdrew his devotional mood and openly revealed his divinity, which is really rare, right? Sitting on the Vishnu's throne for 21 hours. Devotees performed the Abhishek, presented flowers and gifts, which Mahaprabhu accepted, and he gave his blessings and darshan of the forms that devotees desire to see and worship. So whatever devotees had in their heart, the Mahaprabhu would fulfill that desire and give them darshan. Only those who received the mercy of Mahaprabhu had the right to witness this pastime. So one evening, Shivas' mother-in-law, so his wife's name is Malini, and Malini's mother had hid in the corner of a courtyard. Now, she didn't have a huge amount of faith in Gauranga. But anyway, she hid in the courtyard from where she hoped to be able to see the Lord Sankirtan pastimes. But of course, being Paramatma, the Lord was aware of her presence. And he kept repeating that today he felt no joy in the singing of the holy name. somebody was present who shouldn't have been present. When Srivas Pandit found his mother-in-law, he was mortified and he led her out of the courtyard. Brave man. Another time, a certain brahmachari who subsisted on milk alone asked Srivas Pandit for permission to see Mahaprabhu's kirtan. So Srivas Pandit, he was thinking, yes, you're so austere. Come and see the kirtan. But Mahaprabhu again was well aware of the outsiders, stating that one cannot attain devotion to Krishna without surrendering to him, and certainly not by engaging in superficial austerities. So sometimes we might be a little guilty of this. We try to do some sort of tapasya, thinking this will make me a great devotee. But actually, that's not what makes us a devotee. What makes us devotee is having bhakti. The most merciful Lord placed his lotus feet on the brahmachari's head, telling him not to make a show of his austere practice out of pride. Mahaprabhu's kirtan went on at Srivas Pandit's house with the doors locked every night for a full year. Several of these non-devotees became envious because they were unable to see what was going on, and they insulted the devotees. One of them was a Bhattacharya Brahmin named Gopal Chapal, who decided to destroy Srivas Pandit's reputation by placing a plate of offerings intended for Kali on his doorstep. These included liquor and meat, flowers, red sandalwood, etc. In the morning, when Srivas Pandit opened the door, he saw these items and he started to laugh. And he loudly proclaimed, "Look, everyone, I am a Shakta. I am worshipping the goddess Kalima." His better behaved neighbors were pained to see what had taken place. And they removed the offending items and purified the doorstep with cow dung. Everybody knew Srivas was a very amazing devotee of Lord Krishna. Anyway, as a result of this offense to Srivas Pandit, Gopal Chapal was afflicted by leprosy. So one day, when Mahaprabhu came to the banks of the Ganga to bathe, Gopal Chapal approached him and prayed to be freed from his disease. Mahaprabhu angrily answered him, "You made it seem as though Srivas Pandit had worshipped Kali, so you will dwell for 1,000,000 lifetimes in a hell known as Raurav." This is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adilya 17th chapter. So, but later something else happened. When Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas, he came once to Kulia, the site where offenses are forgiven. Kulia is the present-day town of Navadvip. Okay. So this time when Gopal Chapal begged him again to be forgiven, Mahaprabhu was compassionate and he told him to ask forgiveness of Srivas Pandit. One has to ask forgiveness of the very devotee one has offended if one wishes to be freed of the offense. When Srivas forgave Gopal, he was freed from the effects of his offense. So he was cured of the leprosy. Devanand Pandit, this is another pastime. He was a great lecturer in Srimad Bhagavatam, but he didn't have any devotion. He knew the Bhagavatam, but he recited it almost like a professional reciter. So one day, Srivas Pandit, he went to listen to Devanand. And because Srivas was a great devotee, he was very deeply affected by the verses that were chanted by Devanand. Even though Devanand wasn't a devotee necessarily, but the effect of the Bhagavatam is still there. And tears started to flow from his eyes in the midst of the assembly. Devanand's students, they were thinking that Srivas is making a disturbance, and they dragged him out from the satsang. Even though Devanand saw his students acting in this way, he didn't do anything to stop them. So this is like a Vaishnava offense. So Mahaprabhu later rebuked Devanand for his inaction on this occasion. But later on, Devanand had the good fortune to come into the association of Bakeshwar Pandit, and he served him, and then he attained Mahaprabhu's mercy. So it's very important that devotees are honored so that the blockage isn't there from gaining more bhakti. One day, the local magistrate known as Sirajuddin Chandakazi was walking by Srivas Pandit's house, and he heard the loud sound of the kirtan. He became irritated. He went in and broke the madanga. And some of the devotees were beaten as a warning. He said, if anyone does this sankirtan again, he will be punished even more severely. And this significance of the broken madanga is still there in Mayapur Shiva Sangam. When we go, we will see, we will see the madanga. It's not the same madanga, but when Mahaprabhu received word of this incident, he became very angry. He ordered the devotees to take torches and musical instruments and join him fearlessly for Sankirtan. So this was the first non-violent march. Thousands of men, women, children put aside their housework and joined the Lord and followed the Sankirtan procession. When the miscreants heard the sound of the kirtan, their hearts began to tremble. Meanwhile, Chandakazi heard that thousands of Hindus were approaching his house. He ran inside to hide, trembling with fear. Eventually, he came out and he talked with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He pleaded with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we are related and you should deal with me. I am your uncle in a nice way. Stop this angry crowd from giving me a thumping. So upon his arrival, the Chandakazi addressed Mahaprabhu as nephew, since by village relationship, he was Nilambar Chakravarti's brother. After a few moments of cordial conversation, the Kazi recounted the following story. The night after I broke the madanga, I had a dream in which I saw a most frightening figure, half man, half lion. He came and sat on my chest and he threatened to tear it in the way that I had broken the madanga. When he saw how afraid I was, he calmed me down. He told me he would forgive me if I promised never to interfere with the kirtan again. Chandakazi then showed the scratch marks that had been imprinted on his chest by Nrsingadev's claws. He then promised that neither he nor anyone from his family would ever stop Sankirtan again. He became Gauranga's devotee. So this is an interesting picture. There's Nrsingadev giving Chandakazi a hard time in a dream, and then Chandakazi surrenders to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is the place actually still there. The tomb of Chandakazi is in the Brahman Pushkarini, the present day Brahman Pukar. So that is again very near to Mayapur. And there stands a very old Gokul Champa tree. Both Hindus and Muslims offer their respects to the tomb of the Chandakazi, because he became a devotee of the Lord. When Mahaprabhu put on a play, and to this day, I think the Sankirtan movement is never stopped by the local rulers. When Mahaprabhu put on a play about his Vrindavan pastimes at Chandrasekhar's house in Mayapur, Srivas Pandit would play the role of Narad Muni. Once after a night of kirtan at Srivas Pandit's house, when Mahaprabhu returned to external awareness, he would go with all the devotees to bathe in the Ganga. Sometimes the devotees would ceremonially bathe the Lord at Srivas Angam. One of Srivas Pandit's servant girls named Dukhi would watch Mahaprabhu's ecstatic dancing with tears in her eyes. She also performed the service of filling jugs of water from the Ganga for Mahaprabhu's morning bath. Mahaprabhu observed her devotion and was pleased. he changed her name from Dukhi to Sukhi. Happy to happy. So nice lesson from this. One can perform simple service to please and get the mercy of the Lord. Now, one day, Srivas Pandit's only son died during the kirtan. So this is really incredible pastime that took place. Srivas Pandit was afraid that the sound of mourning, crying from the women's quarters would disturb Mahaprabhu's kirtan while he was engaged in the singing of the holy names. So he swiftly went inside the house and he quietened the family members by explaining spiritual truths to them. And he threatened to throw himself in the river if they made any noise to disturb Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu performed kirtan until late night and later said, something doesn't seem right. Has some tragedy taken place in the Pandit's house? Some of the devotees said, yes, Prabhu, Srivas Pandit's only son, died in the evening, about an hour after sunset. So Mahaprabhu asked, why did no one say anything before now? And the devotees said, Lord, Srivas Pandit told us not to because he was afraid that it would interfere with your pleasure in kirtan. Mahaprabhu said, how can I ever abandon devotees who love me to this extent? And he started to shed tears. This is where the Lord becomes conquered by the devotee. Srivas Pandit sacrifice. Don't cry. Doesn't matter. We cannot disturb the Lord's happiness. Very powerful, very powerful. So this is the scene. He's doing kirtan and then next door they're crying as their son has died. Extraordinary. After this, Mahaprabhu went inside and he sat beside the child's dead body and he brought him back to consciousness and he asked, child, why did you want to leave the house of such a devotee as Srivas? So the dead child, he replied, the few days that I was to spend in Srivas Pandit's house are over. Now I am following your wish in going elsewhere. I am a living being without independence. I cannot go against your wishes. Please be merciful to me that I never forget your lotus feet wherever I go. So this is really powerful because it shows that we are connected to the Supreme Lord only. And everybody else, every other soul is also connected to the Supreme Lord. Our connection with other souls is secondary. We may be together with somebody for a short period of time. That's all it is, short period of time. But the connection with the Lord is eternal. So very important to understand this. So when Srivas Pandit's family members heard the child speak such wisdom, they immediately forgot their distress and they stopped mourning. Why did they stop mourning? Because they understood that this boy is somewhere else. He has not died. He's just somewhere else in the service of the Lord. So Mahaprabhu said to Srivas Pandit, from this day on, Nityananda and I will be your sons. We will never leave you. So this is so powerful. The lesson is detachment from material relations and attachments to spiritual relations is very important. So if we are thinking that this is our world, we'll live here forever, and this is my son, this is my daughter, this is my mother, and this is my father, we'll never have a connection with the Supreme Lord. And we don't give him a chance to have a connection with us. But if we somehow or other don't worry too much about the material relationships, then he will become our child or our parent, whatever we want. This is the beauty of the Lord. And what can be better than that? After Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas and was living in Puri, Srivas Pandit would come with other devotees each year to stay with him for 4 months of the year, rainy season. Srivas Pandit was a participant with Mahaprabhu in his pastimes of cleaning the Gundicha temple and Rath Yatra. He was the principal singer in the second out of the 7 kirtan groups whose chief dancer was Nityananda Prabhu himself. So Srivas would sing, Nityananda would dance. When Mahaprabhu wished to dance, all the 7 groups came together. On one such occasion, the king, Pattaparudra, was watching Mahaprabhu's dancing while leaning on his servant Harichandan's shoulder. It happened that Shiva slapped Harichandan as he was constantly disturbed so that the king could see better. Harichandan became angry and was about to hit him back when the king stopped him, telling him how fortunate he was to have been touched by the hand of a devotee such as Srivas Pandit. So it's a nice pastime. After Mahaprabhu took sannyas in Katwa, Srivas Pandit found it impossible to remain in Navadvip, where everything was full of painful reminders of the Lord. He and his brothers moved to Kumarhat, Alisahar, the birthplace of Ishwarapuri. Even so, Srivas Pandit and his brothers made annual trips from Kumarhata to Nilachal to see Mahaprabhu and to Mayapur to visit Chachimata. On one occasion, Mahaprabhu came to his guru's birthplace and showed his respects by taking some dust and wrapping it in his cloth. Since then, tourists to that place take the dust from there with great veneration. That place is known as Chaitanya Dopa. Srivas Pandit's house is very close to Chaitanya Dopa. Mahaprabhu visited the house of Srivas Pandit. So this is the Chaitanya Dopa, Ishwarapuri's birthplace, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took some dust from. All the members of a household joyfully received Mahaprabhu and his companions and became absorbed in their service. Mahaprabhu noticed this and said to Srivas Pandit, "You are a householder with a large family. You have to earn money in order to maintain your family. Otherwise, how will you be able to do so?" Srivas Pandit, he said, he had no desire to earn money. Mahaprabhu asked him, "How do you maintain yourself and your family?" Srivas Pandit first replied that he had no wish to make money. But somehow he was always provided whatever was needed so that he could perform bhakti. Then he clapped his hands 3 times. Mahaprabhu asked him what he meant by clapping his hands 3 times. And Srivas Pandit answered, "I will fast 1, 2, 3 days. Then, if I still get nothing to eat, I will tie a jug to my neck and jump in the Ganga." Mahaprabhu responded to Srivas Pandit's statement by giving a roar and repeated the blessing he had given before in Navadvip. "Even if the goddess of fortune has to go begging, you will never want no want in your house, in your home. Lord Krishna himself provides everything that his exclusive devotees need." So lesson is austerity pleases the Lord when it's connected to devotion. So Srivas Pandit's appearance day is the 8th day of the waning moon, Krishna Ashtami, in the month of Chaitra, which is today, and his disappearance day is celebrated on the 10th day of the waning moon, Krishna Dasami, in June, July. So that's the pastimes of Srivas Pandit, the life and times of a great devotee. So any questions or any comments?
Yes, I did enjoy. I mean, I did come late. I've been to physiotherapy, and the way, yes, it was
Srivas.
Srivas Pandit, and there was this man. He put some
Yes, Kalimata.
all meat and non-food near his doorstep. And then he got himself ill, like he got this disease, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was that a punishment, or was it just...
Yes, because he offended Srivas Pandit. So that offense
that
illness.
part was very interesting, because that's what we say, that what you do, the bad karams, it just comes out. And then he tried it to himself, went to Mahaprabhu and said, just forgive me. But he was never forgiven because the way he treated the Srivas Mahaprabhu, sorry, Pandit, sorry. And then the other was quite interesting. When his son died, the Mahaprabhu didn't knew that the son died, and he was doing the kirtan.
Hmm. That's
then,
right. That was really
yeah,
powerful.
and then late he found out that the son is passed away, which is obviously he didn't wanted to disturb the Mahaprabhu because he was doing this kirtan. That's where I didn't understand that why they didn't tell him.
Because they didn't want to stop the kirtan, spoil the mood of the kirtan.
Yes.
Srivas Pandit was very adamant that bhakti continues no matter what, because bhakti is eternal.
Bhakti is internal.
Eternal,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So even and then something else also I want to mention it. Like there is two ways in the world. I should even not mention this. That in one house a child is dead. In one house they are celebrating child's birthday, so they're all happy.
Mm.
But this is obviously this goes around the world all the time. That one person everybody's happy, and one person somebody's passed away, so they are all emotional.
Sad.
They can't get into it.
Mm.
Anyway, I've really enjoyed today's session, which was very nice.
Thank you. In the Bhagavad Puran, there's also another pastime. This king's son died. The queens poisoned him. They became very jealous. And the king
I
was
know
very
that.
sad. And then Narad Muni came and he said to the king, "Why are you sad?" "My son has died. That's why I'm sad." So Narad Muni woke up the son and he said to this boy, or he put the soul back into the boy's body, and he asked him, "Why did you leave your parents so early?" And the boy asked, "Which parents are you talking about? I've had millions of parents in the past. Which parents are you talking about?"
Okay, about.
So this is Gyan, transcendental knowledge, that we have to understand that we are spirit soul. This body is simply an outer covering.
Yeah, and we are always rebirth, isn't it?
Yeah, we keep taking births in different bodies.
Yeah.
But if we're thinking that this body is my final body,
thank you, finish.
thank you. Yeah, if we're thinking that this body of ours is eternal, we will always be alive, we will never die. This is Maya. This is the problem. This is what we have to overcome. But if we understand that, yes, relationships will change. People will die or leave their bodies, but our connection is not necessarily with those people, it's with the Supreme Lord eternally. Then we'll be properly situated and we'll be steady in any situation. We will never be disturbed, and we can continue our bhakti as best as we can. Okay, thank you so much. Srivas Pandit ki jai.